Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Calm Bomb podcast, recently rebranded from the Design Plus podcast. I'm your host, Raquel Sands, holistic career and business coach. I'm joined today by Analena, a astrologer, human design, Gene Keys coach, intuitive business coach, who I've had the pleasure of working with and meeting with on Instagram. A little introduction on her, but I will give her the chance to introduce herself. She is an intuitive business strategist, human design, and Gene Keys guide for conscious leaders who are craving more ease, flow, and prosperity in their lives and businesses. So, Analena, I'll hand it over to you to also introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you first of all for having me, Raquel. It's such a pleasure. And yeah, to make it very simple, I just love to help people find their truest essence so that they can give themselves permission to go for, what they really desire deep inside, which I think often is not what we give ourselves actually permission to, because so many, learn that we have to follow a certain path. And I mean, for some that's really aligned, but I think for so many, we kind of feel deep inside that there is something else. And if you feel that way, I think I'm your person. If you're open to like some spiritual ways of doing that, because human design and Gene Keys especially is more on the woo side of things, where it's beyond the logic and those things that give us some proven strategies. It really connects you to something that you probably know about yourself, but you haven't really given yourself permission. And I particularly love to work with people that also consider themselves introverts, highly sensitive and empathic people, because that's what I feel like I'm myself as well. Yeah. And I empower you to fully step into your magic.
I love that. Yeah. And human design, I think, found me, or I found it, however we want to say it, a couple years ago. And we can go into this for those of you who are not as familiar with human design, and kind of give a little bit of backstory, what it is. And I recently, this year, again, it found me, the Sidereal Cosmic Human Design, where I really had the pleasure to work with Analena. She worked with me on my chart because it was just kind of the other side of the coin, and so much more, I think, for me, validation. But could we explain a little bit? I'll hand it to you to explain a little bit of what human design is, and if you want to explain cosmic, like the difference, that would be great.
I'll do both. So human design, I like to call it, and people often say that's not what it is, but it's really a way of helping you understand yourself better, and it integrates many different concepts or ancient wisdom that we have access to, like the Chinese I Ching, astrology, the chakra system, Kabbalah, Eastern and Western astrology. I think I said that already. Also quantum physics. So it's a blend of spiritual, but also science. It kind of is blended into one. And it creates like a body graph, how we call it, that looks very complicated with all these lines and signs. Yeah. And people are like, okay, what is this? And numbers and planetary signs and stuff like that. And it gives you a type, a strategy to make decisions, and certain numbers that say something about who you are as a person, right?
Right.
So in a way, it's an energetic blueprint of who you are. And I think it helps us really realize how we are all different, how we're not like all the same, right?
Yeah.
And now traditional human design, that is probably what most people know. If you go online and you pull a human design chart, is based on tropical astrology. And in the beginning, I was honestly not even interested to understand what is even tropical astrology. And my whole body didn't even have the capacity for that. And after I was in the experiment, and this is a thing, by the way, human design is considered an experiment. So don't ever take what you learn about it as something to box you in or tell you how to do things. It's more, okay, let me take this on, let me try it out, how it feels, more as a confirmation for yourself, but never as like an ultimate,
Yes. I like, yes, 100%.
Yeah, because it's easy for us to fall into that, right? Yes. And for some reason, as I was following my human design, so human design can get very complex, but if I make it very simple, the big message for everyone is when it comes to making decisions, it doesn't come mainly from the mind with like a pro and contra list or what makes more sense. It's more about what feels right in my body. And often it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Right?
that's so true.
Now, of course, the mind is still important and powerful to be curious, to investigate certain things, right? But for the decision making, it's more like, do you trust your body, your intuition, and all of that? And as I was doing this more, and I think it's always a work in progress for us to trust ourselves even more. Somehow, True Sidereal astrology came into my life. If I wanted it or not, I definitely wasn't looking for it. It literally came through the people I was working with, right? And I was like, hey, what do you think about it? And can we do a session about it? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm here to respond. And I was also intrigued about it. So basically, True Sidereal astrology, which blew my mind when I really looked into it, is what's actually in the sky. So if we talk about right now, the sun is in the sign of such and such, that's what's actually like in the sky. And I thought, well, of course, but I learned that in tropical astrology, like, so I was born in February and I always thought I'm an Aquarius, but I was born, the sun was actually in Capricorn, not in Aquarius, if I really looked up in the sky.
Wow.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, so I had to really learn and understand, okay, what is tropical even? And I learned that tropical was what was actually in the sky over 2,000 years ago. And they kind of fix it to the seasons of the Earth, but every 72 years, there's a slight shift of 1 degree, which, you know, in the course of 1, 2, 3, 5 years is nothing, but over 2,000 years later, we almost have like a 32-degree shift in the sky. So in a way, tropical is, from my Analena perspective, is ahead of time, is moving too fast because it doesn't take down the natural slowing down. And for me, it was like, well, maybe that's why we all feel like there's something slightly off, even with human design. Like, and when I found out like how also astrology impacts the human design chart, I realized that when I use a different type of astrology, the human design chart shifts. This, of course, now is a little bit advanced. If your listeners want to have some more insights about it on my YouTube channel, you're more than happy to link that in the comments or show notes, right? I did a bunch of videos where I go into depth and explain it also with some graphics. If you feel called to look deeper into this. But the bottom line is your human design chart changes, your type most likely will change, your profile, which always consists of 2 numbers, will also change. And that's a big shock for many people. Especially because what I realized as well, I really identified with the tropical version. And when I learned about my cosmic or true sidereal, we use this interchangeably. So if I should say true sidereal or cosmic, it means the same. Because cosmic human design is based on true sidereal astrology. And the traditional regular human design is always based on tropical astrology. Now, we can argue now what is right or wrong. I go with my gut. And I'm actually not saying that one is right or wrong either way. It's always like, take what resonates with you and really leave the rest, you know, just like you came to me, you had tropical human design readings. I think they served you greatly. And when we just had the session last week, right? You were like, wow, this hits home even more. This is now, like, I described it recently. It was like tropical human design. It was incredible. It gave me so much confirmation. I've never felt seen like this, and empowered me. It helped me to trust myself more. But now that I know my cosmic human design chart, I realized, if I'm being honest with myself, there were a couple things or several things I was trying to talk myself into it, even though it did feel slightly off for me, right? And I realized like, wow, like we can just buy into
Right.
things and, you know, but I also find it happens for a reason. And
Yeah.
with this cosmic chart, I feel like I got a little chiropractic adjustment.
Yeah.
So now I feel straight.
Love it.
So,
Yes, exactly. No, that's great. Yeah, and I was gonna say it's kind of like, or an analogy for me that came to mind was learning how to style, like dressing up. Like I don't
mhm.
feel like I've ever had a good sense of fashion or style. So when I was first learning, I stuck to the basics. And
Yeah.
then, okay, that served me. It was a nice foundation. But now that I know, okay, I'm short and actually these colors work best for me, and I got to fine tune it for actually my particular wants and needs. I feel like that might be a good analogy for human design, that there's a foundation, but then if it doesn't resonate, then you have to kind of play with it and feel it out, like you said, listen to your intuition.
Mhm.
Because I still feel some of the traditional human design. I think it still serves me, but it's more in the back of my head now and
Yeah.
not at the forefront.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love to hear that from you. And you know what's also was very interesting? So in human design, we have 5 types.
Okay.
And so it's called the projector, manifestor, reflector, generator, and manifesting generator. And what I started to notice is that there was a lot of a separation going on. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm this type. I can only do this. Or no, you shouldn't do this because you're not this type. So that
Yeah.
was a very interesting observation for me. And that never resonated with me because I was like, hold on. We are
Yeah.
like 8 billion plus
Okay.
people consistently growing.
Yes.
Cannot put ourselves in 5 different categories. That's a little bit ambitious.
Yes. Yeah.
And I also started to realize from the amazing people I was working with and my amazing audience and people asking me questions that,
Yeah.
and always keeping in mind, it's an
Mhm.
experiment, right? Human
Right.
design. I think we can so easily
Right.
forget that there was a little bit of some hierarchy going on, like this type is better than this. And again, you shouldn't do this,
Yes.
only this type can do that. I was like, hold on. I don't
Yeah.
think that this system is really used for that.
No. Right.
I think it's good to bring our human shadows up so we can
Yes.
release them and transcend them. So
Right.
I started to really disconnect from,
Mhm.
like, I started to unfollow a lot of accounts just because I had to honor
Yeah.
how I felt about it, not because it was wrong. I was just like, okay, something is off here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have to follow what's true to me because that's also what human design taught me, to trust
Yes.
myself.
Right. Right.
Right. And I started, even before this True Sidereal came into my life, I started to look at the types in a more fluid way and
Mhm.
explaining people like, yeah, you're this type, but there's other elements in your chart that also help you
Mhm.
realize why you connect at the end of the day, probably with all 5 types a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah.
right?
I
It's
love
more
that.
like your type is probably the strongest you feel,
Mm.
but it doesn't mean it's mutually exclusive
Right.
with what you learn about the other types. And
Yes.
I think we humans, we have a strong tendency to see black or white. It can only be this or that.
Right. Right.
What if it can be both?
Yes.
And we as humans, we change, we evolve, we shift.
Yes.
And then there's this big argument of like, okay, but human design is this, and the person that brought human design into the world or channeled the wisdom is called Ra Uruhu. That's the name he gave
Mhm.
himself after the experience. And he taught it in a way that human design was based on tropical astrology.
Right.
Now that was in 1987.
Right. Right.
It has been a hot minute since then. So almost 40 years later,
Yeah.
I think it's fair enough that we humans have the courage to evolve and change and
Yes.
bring something new into the world as the world is changing. And right now, so when this happened with me, the cosmic human design,
Yeah.
I had no idea, but they were already doing this for, I think, almost 3 or 4 years, some
Oh,
people.
okay. Wow.
And many women actually came to me that they thanked me because I, for some reason, just talked about it on Instagram. I was like, guys, that's what I learned. That's what I think. That's what I feel. There was
Yeah.
a part of me a little bit scared. Well, now people think everything I said before about human design is invalid.
Right.
but I think thankfully, because I always approached it so expansive, also with the types, it was
Yeah.
a natural progression for me.
Yes.
And I learned that there were a lot of people that are holding back from talking more about
Yes.
cosmic or true sidereal or human design, because there was a lot of backlash from the main human design community, you know?
Yes.
And I thought that's very, again, very interesting. And if you ask me, I think that, again, it's a natural progression. And where I'm at, it's just, I think, 6 months since I really got pulled into it. And I also publicly announced more about it.
Wow.
I almost completely stopped giving readings for tropical. I still offer them.
Okay.
So I really go with what my audience wants and needs. And just like you, people are like,
yes,
the
right.
majority come to me and like, wow, thank you so much for doing this. Even people that didn't have a reading with me, they tell me like, oh my gosh, now it fixed. Now it feels right. The tropical served me, but now it's almost like people find peace and they can relax and let go.
Yes.
And, you know, it's also, I had really a lot of success with my clients with the tropical, where people really, it changed their life, how they approach business in magical ways.
Yeah.
But the profound shift I see now with cosmic or true sidereal human design, it's kind of this like what I always like, oh, is this real, when people give testimonials where it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So that's what I have experienced so far with True Sidereal. And again, this is not to say that this is the one thing now. This is
right.
my experience.
Yes.
But the people that are drawn to me, the people that I'm chosen to work with, that's our unique experience. And I'm just following that.
Yes, no, 100%. And one more, I think, analogy, because I think most of my listeners are more familiar with astrology. And so I think this is a great bridge, because typical Western astrology is the tropical astrology. And even I hear people when I tell my mom or my family members and they get into it, they're like, I'm not really a Taurus, or I'm not really this. It's another box. But I think also in astrology, all the planets and signs are in everybody's chart, but we focus on like the big one, and it's just kind of what you said. It's not black and white. There's so much more to us. But I think perhaps to society's credit, it's easier for us to digest. But yeah, it's just it's hard sometimes, because when we're on the self discovery path, we don't want to box ourselves in. And so having people like you and others to show that that's only one side of the story that you've seen is so important.
Yeah, I love that comment of yours, because I think there are two coins to that, because it's true. Like with astrology, I mean, tropical, we can say, yeah, we box ourselves into the 12 signs, we could say. But I think also where it really ultimately comes from is that finally feel like we belong.
Yeah.
You know, because that's how it was for me too. Like in tropical, I'm a manifesting generator. You have no idea how seen I felt with my, you know this, you are managing in the True Sidereal, right? So it's like, oh my God, it's totally okay that I'm multi-passionate.
Yes.
That permission slip. And also with my audience. And finally, I felt like I can really talk to people, and we have these commonalities. So it went from one, because all humans, we want to belong, right? It's for all of us, totally normal. And it kind of gave us that. And then it can flip to the other extreme, where we're now we're against each other. We are those and we are that, and it's better. And I was like, okay, it's normal. That's what we humans do in some way. And we have to also experience and see it happen to like, okay, hold up. Now let's maybe find a happy medium.
Yes.
We can all coexist. We're here to coexist and work with each other, and also realize that, just like we need female and male characteristics in the world, we also need all the 5 types. In that sense. And like you say, in astrology, it's very similar. Now we can just identify by the sun sign, but we are all of the chart. We have all energies, all signs in some way. We have everything in the chart. And that's something I learned through human design. Even though you have certain gates and channels and centers defined, you still have all of the chart. And that's the same in astrology. So it's just like how we experience that is different. It's often through other people, through our environment, and how we connect with others, that we get to experience all of it. And it's just that sometimes one sign is more emphasized.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that.
And you could be a sun sign in one sign, but the rest of the chart is so different, so that you actually feel much more than something else.
Yes, no, exactly. Yeah. And we won't go too much into that, how that blew my mind too. When I did the offer that you and I think Christine, I forget her name, but that you both put together.
Oh, like Kelly, we did the birthday branding. Yes.
Because that also went through a whole rabbit hole of, okay, my sun sign is in Cancer, but actually Gemini. And I'm like, that makes sense with all of the things that I like to nerd out about and be in my head.
The multi-passionate is very much the Gemini,
but I wanted to ask, how did you start your business? How did you, specifically with human design, but because we talked, I think we both relate on the multi-passionate, and I saw on your website that you did real estate and photography. And
I did it all.
So
I love that question. So I was working in corporate for many, many years, because that's what we do, right? We go to college. So I got a business degree. And I have to be honest, like I never felt home in corporate. I just felt like that's what I have to do. I wasn't excited. What I knew always, sounds maybe a little snobby, but my skills and talents were underutilized. That I knew totally. The one thing I think I really enjoyed in corporate was HR. Because for some years I worked mainly in HR, because I got to have a lot of contact with people. I just enjoyed that, the contact. That's the kind of the four-line energy we learn in human design. And also the versatility that you actually experience. And I cannot just sit on the computer, because then I ended up mainly in finance. And that was a gut decision where I didn't trust myself. I was literally so at a moment where my mind was like, yeah, you should be in finance. That's more aligned with your college degree and your major, because I had a corporate finance major. But did I love it? Absolutely not. So while I was still in corporate, that was another thing. So when I also still did some HR and some training, I always had people come to my office and ask me these questions, and I felt like I was coaching them. And I actually then kind of saw how whatever I just shared from my intuition changed kind of people's life. And I was like, this is fun, this is easy, And then one day, also I was into like healthy nutrition, because I grew up in Germany, and here in the US it's a little bit messed up, so to say.
Yes, it is.
So I also had this like, well, this comes easy to me, like eating healthy is kind of common sense. And so I started at some point, I think I was on my couch one day and I was on my Gmail inbox, and there popped this ad from the Health Coach Institute popped up.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah, and then I trusted myself, so I became a certified health coach. I was still working in corporate at the time. And that's the first time where I had this like, the spark, and I was like, oh my God, I love it. And and I even told my colleagues about it. And I started to get my first clients actually from the people I was working with.
Oh my gosh.
And I even gave I always tell the story, because I wanted to get out of corporate. I was scared. I was a single mom. I mean, the money, I was just like, how can I do this? Like, this is
do what you have to do, right?
Yeah. So, but my last annual review that I had with my boss at the time, and I still think it's so funny that I had the guts to do that, I gave him my coaching business card.
Oh God. Wow.
I mean, my intention was like, hey, I can maybe do more than finance. I can also help train here in the company. And I may be more of I wanted to bring my versatility more into the position I had, but that wasn't really meant for what she needed me for, right?
Okay, right.
Because I was like all in finance at this point. And I was bored as heck, and I didn't enjoy it, to be honest. So then I started to put it out to the universe. I was more into the coaching than into my job, but I was so grateful for the money that was coming in.
Right.
And then one day, and I knew it, I literally had already packed my my things because I had a HR meeting scheduled in my calendar without
Oh,
any topic. It was in my office, and I was like,
yeah.
all right, the day of me getting
Yeah.
fired is coming. So I knew it, and that's exactly what happened.
Oh, wow.
Um, I was relieved, but I also was scared at the same time
Yeah. Yeah.
because I hadn't handed in my resignation because I was scared. You
Right.
know?
Right. Right.
But it was funny, like 2 weeks before that, I had written a contract to myself while I was at a retreat that I was going to quit my job once I have X amount of clients because I needed that safety in my mind.
Safety is right. Right.
Yeah. But my coach and mentor was like, no, you're ready. I was like, whatever. And the
Yeah.
universe was like, you're ready, you're getting fired. So it was a gift in that sense.
Yes. It
Right.
was. Yes. Yeah.
And then, yeah, it has been quite
Wow.
several years since then that
Oh my God.
I went on this journey of being an entrepreneur, and it wasn't like a straight line up, to be honest, because in the
Right.
beginning, I had no idea what I'm going to do. I had a couple of
Mhm.
clients here and there, which wasn't even close enough to pay my bills or anything.
Right.
So I had to also get very resourceful. I mean, in the beginning, I worked through so many scarcity fears or
Wow.
like existential fears as well.
Right. Right.
Um, but I have to say, it always worked out. And I had a couple of side things here and there to bring in some extra money, I think. But the universe was always like, no, you're really supposed to go fully. And I think it's something you just know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for some years, I kind of felt like I was looking for, well, what have people figured out that I haven't figured out? I was really projecting my solution on other people. You know, when people advertise, I have the secret formula, I have the
Right.
success recipe. So I invested a lot of money into that, didn't lead me too much. And when I finally found more my own truth,
Yes.
that's when things started to unfold. And that's definitely the magic
Yes.
moment when also human design found me. Like a friend
Yeah.
of mine, she was telling me about it at the time. She's like, you gotta check it out, you know. And we were always like checking out all these new things and super
Yeah.
curious, always learning.
Yeah.
And yeah, it changed my life so much that I started to pretty quickly share it with my clients because I love to teach. I love to share knowledge.
Yes.
And I also always was kind of a teacher. Even in high school, I was always tutoring children very successfully. So I knew that it just felt right in my gut. It didn't come from like, oh, now I have something to make money. It was really like, it is my obligation to share this knowledge in kind of a grounded way, not so hyped up, but like, hey, I find this so shape-shifting for myself. I at least want you to know about it. If it resonates, then yeah.
Yes. Gosh. Wow.
Yeah, and then from that was really a pivotal moment where it changed big time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It still helped me uncover a lot of my fears, fear of rejection being one of them, or thinking that I can't do it by my own. I have to need other people. Like help me step up into my greatness more, my confidence.
Yes. Right. Right.
As a leader, as a teacher, as a guide, or thought leader, however you're gonna call it.
Yes.
And yeah, and then at some point I launched my podcast, as you know, and I started to show up more consistently. And yeah, it just has been growing more and more. And I started to feel more aligned, right? And one of the big things that also happened for me as an entrepreneur that was very important, you know, while a lot of information I took can help me, at some point I had to realize I have to stop just consuming. I have to start creating. And just these last few months, I have taken that to a next level because the more I distract myself scrolling on social media, you know how it is, right? It's like, where did the time go? And then you feel uninspired to create content or share your truth with people. And it went so much that just this last week, and I think, I don't know if you talked about this. I think, no, it was another conversation, but I finally unfollowed everyone on Instagram because not because I want to like not be in contact with people, but
Right.
because I caught myself way too many times just wastelessly scrolling, and I wasn't doing the thing that I was meant to do, and not
Yes.
putting out what I'm meant to put out into the world to be of service, to help people, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
And that's my personal journey, right? I don't think there's anything right or wrong. If I had the discipline to not even look at this stuff, I didn't need to.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but somehow that felt like the right step to me, so that I'm even more, producing, creating, whatever wants to come through me.
You can have the space and time. Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. Yeah, because a few things came to mind for me as you were speaking. One is, I think, just the bravery to just recognize that you don't want to be in corporate, because I think so much of us just stay for fear, even though corporate or any job isn't guaranteed, because we could get all fired, laid off. But there is this, kind of, it's sold to us as it's safe. You can stay there however long. But then we get told so much, oh, but be your greatness or your most authentic self. And well, how do you do that if you don't know, if you haven't explored? Which is human design, I feel like, is a huge tool. So for anyone who hasn't done it, please. And Analena is great. So I think it was a huge turning point. And I think so many of these tools are avenues, but then not to box us in again, like we said. So it's this fine balance. And yeah, I think one thing I wanted to mention on the business development piece is, it was interesting for me doing some of the business classes and learning. I don't come from a business background, besides my dad having his own business, but not officially. And, I would live in that kind of ecosystem of, okay, do my course or do this, but I wouldn't notice anyone actually promoting the client's work. Or how am I ever supposed to have clients if all I do is spend money on other people's things, but I don't see there's this reciprocal relationship? I think even in nature, the trees help other trees through the roots or something. And I was thinking, yes, we're all competing, but we're also sharing and supporting each other. So that was something that I noticed. And to your point, having to kind of block or, have those blinders on, to focus on myself, but also just what are the energies that I really want to dedicate to so certain people versus, I don't know, not getting my hands in too many pockets and too many things and then not following through. I think it's a journey. And I think as long as that piece of who are we or that, who are we becoming, if that stays central, then everything else hopefully gets easier.
Yeah, actually, let me respond to those. So the first with the corporate being safe, and then the second, I actually want to give your listeners some, I think, very valuable advice in terms of, consuming content, working also with other coaches to build your business. Because I think I learned some lessons that are priceless for everyone. So first thing with corporate, look, for some people it's meant to be, and that's their path, and they know it, right? And there's, I think, some amazing companies out there. But I think if you're one of the person that feels like, deep inside of it's not for you, and it's really important to follow the calling. Now, just in my example, it felt safe, but in my case, I got fired from one day to the other. I didn't get a severance package. I no longer had benefits, nothing and I was with the company for almost 5 days. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, where I'm originally from in Germany, it's very different there, I have to say. Like, you would have like several months of pay, probably. They probably would give you a severance package. So that was definitely disheartening, to have somebody in a company for that long. And I don't want to have a pity party, but I think it's reality for so many that you're just a number at the end of the day. They don't need you anymore.
That's right.
Unfortunately, right?
So,
but I'm also grateful for the whole experience. What I have learned there, the people I have met, priceless also, right? And now to the point of like, when you start a business,
Mm.
now you have all the answers inside of yourself. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but
Yeah.
especially like human design or something can really help you with that a lot. Because when I started my business, I spent a lot of money, especially money that I didn't have. And I want to say, like, here in the United States,
Yes.
we have sometimes too much easy access to money.
That's true. That's true.
Right. Like, for example, again, in Germany, like, you don't just get a credit card when you start your business and without even having to show a business plan. But here, like, I had access to too much money in the beginning that I spent on programs that promised the world to me in terms of making money. They used my pain points and
Yeah.
it didn't work out. So don't think you need those shiny objects always that are being sold to you.
Yes.
Because anytime from my experience, when I did something to make money, it didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've tried it so many times. And if you're listening to this right now, there's a reason for it. I always believe that. There's a lot of amazing coaches, guides, and mentors out there that you don't have to spend a fortune on.
Yeah.
That's even why over time, I now have of course, if you work with me for 6 months one-on-one, that's a high ticket investment.
Right.
But a human design reading and what you can get out of it, it's an
Yes.
incredible investment in yourself. I don't feel like it's overpriced or anything. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. No, I can validate. I'll just be a quick like testimonial there that I think
Yeah.
it's a good, reasonable, it's not high ticket. It's something that I think if someone has the means and they're looking for this and not in a book, because I think books and everything also is too much DIY, do it yourself. But I've invested in the expert to translate and help guide me. So that takes so much of the work out of me trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and it also feels aligned with my time that I'm investing, my intuitive guidance, all the wisdom I have shared over the years. So, and I'm gonna share a link because I occasionally offer discounted pricing. So for your audience, I'm gonna create a special link for you. Just remind me of that, so people can book a reading if they're interested. Because it's really like it's life changing, and it can save you a lot of money down the line when you more learn to trust yourself and not fall again for these shiny objects, things we have out there. Because what I have seen happening a lot, and especially in the coaching space, so to say, is that because let's be real, we live in a culture where it's always more is better. We have to make more money.
Yeah.
But what happens? We create more of a gap where people that don't have the money overinvest, and the people that already make more than enough money keep making more and more. And it's great that they make more money, but if that leads to you not being able to pursue your dream and not doing your business because financially it's not sustainable, it's not going to help anyone at the end of the day, right? And this is why I had this experience myself, that for me was always important that I have a solid range of products and services that, I have a membership. As we speak, it's closed, but it's opening for enrollment in August 20. So probably when this episode is going to air, it's called the Conscious Money Creators Membership. And in here, we also do Gene Keys, human design. We work on money mindset as well in kind of a grounded way, not this hyped up way, and also on creating content in your zone of genius. So you actually put your work out in the day. It's $33 a month. It's not going to put too much pressure on you. You have a loving, supportive community. That's something that I wish I would have had access to when I started, right? Because anytime when I was in this like pressured place where I invested money and I already had the pressure to make the money back, and that's not a healthy for your nervous system, not a good state to be in.
No.
To really connect to your essence, you have to be able to relax.
Yes, exactly.
And having financial pressure it's just a reality that makes it kind of hard, right?
Yes. Yeah. And to bridge, I think maybe make another comparison with that corporate, and some of my audience are still in school or getting out of college, things like that. There's that pressure of if you just go back for master's or you go back for a doctorate, and are you getting your return on investment? Because what if you decide not to be in that field anymore, or they don't promote you to get that money? So that money concept, I think. So I'm so glad you have that membership, because that's so talking about money is not instinctive, or it doesn't, it hasn't been comfortable. Maybe now it's changing culturally, but also now in business, there's also what type of business is more always better, and I have to be competing and selling. And that's why I think that know ourselves, because I know that I don't want employees. I'm perfectly happy working by myself. And if I do client work, it's one-on-one, it's not 100 people. So yeah, I think I'm a believer and a testament to human design, astrology, all those tools, because the more we know and get clarity, I think the easier it is in all the things. So are there any, I was gonna ask you this in the beginning, but we got caught up into it. Are there any media, so this could be human design books or not, but I guess any content, book, show, movie that has changed your life or positively shaped it in some way?
Yes, I mean, definitely everything related to human design. I mean, there's lots of books out there. I studied with Karen Parker, for example, and that experience definitely, she has I think the red book from her, it's called Human Design.
Okay.
Something definitely was life-changing for me.
Okay.
There have been some other books on the way, and I probably right now have a blank. I mean, there was one, actually, there's one book that I don't remember his name, but he was very masculine approach, right? About, well, you have to build your habits. And if it comes to my mind, I'll let you know. You can put it in the show notes.
Sure.
I have to look it up. But in the beginning, I followed this approach of like hustling and you have to be consistent.
Okay.
And I resisted it. But once I found my alignment with who I am, I found myself back, because now I talk a lot about consistency, because in this conscious money creators, it's about showing up consistently and creating and experimenting, putting your stuff out there so that you can actually find what your niche is, because your niche is not, an age category of something out there that drives a certain car and reads a certain magazine. It's your most authentic essence.
Yes.
Right. And for that, you have to experiment. You have like artists, right? They probably have done 1,000 different pictures before they got the one.
The one. Yes, exactly.
But from an aligned place where you really like, you know who you are and you're being true to yourself.
Yeah.
It's so much more magical to create. So in a way, my body felt resistance to being consistent, because I didn't even know where I was going to go. I had to take a step back, slow down, take a really big pause to get in touch. And it's almost like a compass, right? Where you can force yourself, just like your listeners right now, getting out of college, thinking about career, instead of rushing into that. Like maybe you're about to start your college degree and spend
more money,
$250,000 on something that you don't even know if you're passionate about. Maybe take a second and get really in touch with your heart's desires, because you can make it work. You can hustle, you can grind. That's why a lot of people also get burned out. You find this on YouTube these days, the videos that go viral at people that had the courage to leave their job. It was, some people are surgeons, some people are lawyers. They did the thing that made the family happy. That's what was expected of them. But they left it, and they're now looking for a much calmer, nature-connected life, and they're happier than ever. Because if the younger you are, actually, if you take that time to actually like, okay, who am I? What do I really want? You may just shift 1 degree in direction. But if that's your aligned path, the universe is going to support you. It's going to make it easy. It's going to get more effortless. And just that one decision creates so much more magic in your life.
100%. Yeah. And I think here in the US, there's not that culture of, I mean, everything is go, go, go. So right after high school is college, and college, you have to have a job, and everything is set up in such a way that there's no breathing room. There's no reflection. If people get the chance for financial reasons or whatever it is to study abroad, that's like a lottery ticket, you know, it's not a given.
Yeah.
And so for me, I didn't want to go to college growing up. I really resisted because I fell in love with yoga in high school, and I wanted to move to one of these states that are very like hippie and woo. And my parents, who are immigrants, were very like, no, you need to get prepared. I'm an only child, so who's going to take care of you? To their credit, I mean, it has served me, but thankfully, I also thanking myself and universe and everything that I was courageous enough to stop it also when I had to, because I think some people might just follow that path that people push them down for fear, for safety, and then lose themselves in the process. And then when they find tools like human design, it's like, is that me? They don't even, you know, it's hard now to even locate their sense of self, which is not trying to scare anyone, but that's like a horror story that could happen. So any other shows maybe, or movies, anything that has inspired you, or any
Gosh, it's
getting out of human design since we've talked so much about human
because
design?
I honestly I barely watch TV.
Oh, good. Okay.
But I want to say there's a couple of documentaries. So recently I watched a documentary, was called, I think, Love Over Money.
Oh, okay.
That's on Gaia TV, and it's by the son of the Baskin Robbins ice cream empire.
Interesting. What?
Highly recommended. I mean, that really describes in a way what I help people do, because he had the courage. Like, he was expected to take over the ice cream empire, and it was all about money, right? Very influential.
Right.
But his heart was all about, I want to eat healthy, because he learned how, you know, the dairy they promoted was from cows that's in confinement, very unhealthy. What was advertised wasn't real. They were promoting ice cream as healthy, loaded with sugar, right? So like in his heart, he couldn't do it. And so he went on this very unconventional path. Like, actually, I think he gave up his whole inheritance, if I remember correctly. A lot of money, right? And totally did his own thing, lived in nature for years with his wife, I think in Canada. He followed his heart, and he eventually became super successful, but following his heart and going totally against the grain of what was expected. And like, human design is a tool that can help people to have the courage to follow your heart's calling, right? He did it anyways. He didn't need human design for it, I think. But that's really a story. Before you start spending all the money on things that you inside maybe that's not my path. Take a minute, watch that, and it really may change the direction that you are going. Because I think deep in your heart, everyone that's listening knows inside. But the question is, are you listening to yourself? Or are you listening to, if it's parents, society, what's popular? And I find the most success comes to people that go against the grain, that have the courage to stand out. And I think often it's like, we're like, oh, I'm the black sheep, I'm different. Like, I invite you to be different. You don't need sameness. It's so boring, right?
No, exactly. Yeah, because if not for individuals like you, like myself, like other beautiful solopreneurs out there, then I mean, all of these other services would not be there, you know, and people wouldn't maybe then be in like the dominoes effect. One ripple affects another change effect. And there was one other thing I was going to say, but I think my thought is leaving me. I think it's gone. That's okay. But I love this because I think that's what it was, that human design and for me, they're spiritual tools because they have a science to them, but they bring out that essence, that soul aspect that I think also in society they try to shush about, or it becomes a religious conversation, which doesn't have to be. I don't think that's each their own, but knowing that there is something instinctive inside of us and allowing it in so much of society that doesn't allow us. So I think that's just a beauty. And yeah, thank you for all your work, honestly, because it has changed my life, been such a help. To wrap up, we mentioned the Instagram and YouTube, but are there any other places that people can find you, interact with you, work with you on the webs, online?
Yeah, so yeah, there's also my website, my email, bloom@analenafuchs.com. I'll provide all of that to you. Then I have this Conscious Money Creator membership. Like I said, that's opening up again and sometime in August of 2024, depending when this episode airs. I support people actually launching their own podcasts.
Yes.
The current cohort starts August 8th, so I think enrollment closes. I may keep it open for another week or so mid-August. That is an incredible course. Anybody that's looking to actually launch their own podcast, get out into the world and be consistent with that. And I integrate human design in that experience as well.
I love it.
I do one-on-one coaching. This can be for people that are either thinking about starting their own business, or you have already a financially successful business, but you are hustling your butt off and you're looking for more ease and alignment with that.
Yeah.
Again, then I only recommend if you really have the financial needs for that. Other than that, I recommend the membership or book a reading here and there to give you that alignment. And yeah, I think these are the main things. My podcast, there's lots of resources. I have over 140 episodes. It's called The Art of Slowing Down, soon to be the Magic Pause podcast. And I do all things human design. Also, Gene Keys we didn't talk about much today, but it's something related to human design. And it's especially for people that are in the entrepreneurial space looking to get out of corporate or grow and expand their own businesses.
Beautiful. Excellent. No, that's great. And I listen to her podcast for anyone who's interested in those things. I can vouch for that. And on YouTube specifically, because I like to have the video. And
I'm now since the beginning of this year, you can find all my episodes also on YouTube as well. Exactly.
Yes. No, it's great. And so this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Analena, for your time. I'll leave all the things in the show notes and on Instagram, wherever we post this. So thank you so much. I really appreciate having you on the Calm Bomb, rebranded, I have to remember, podcast today.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. And I hope it served you all. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.